Issues of race didn't, of course, only apply to the various groups of white Europeans trying to enter the States. Since the abolition of slavery, the prospects for blacks frustrated the ideal that all men were created equal. Boas actively campaigned on behalf of black people all over America. Contrary to prevailing notions of the day, he stated that there was no evidence that they were racially inferior. The findings that he'd reported from Ellis Island challenged the concept that certain racial characteristics were fixed or stable. His were views that white America found almost totally incomprehensible, and in some quarters they're still unaccepted today.
Boas introduced a new way of looking at race. Boas was the first distinguished white social scientist in the United States who minimized the importance of race as a determinant of human behavior.
Boas took a deliberate and bold social stance and agitated for a more tolerant and informed approach to questions of racial difference.
He even did one thing that's very, very little known, but I think is extraordinarily interesting. One of the things he asked his field workers to do, and they were a brilliant group of men that he chose, was to make life masks of the people they were working with. The field work spread from the northwest coast up the borderline to Alaska, over into Asia, and even some studies as far south as China. It's a fantastic collection. Many of these people have now become extinct. And we have the only absolute representation of these people in their whole facial features. We have, I don't know, at least maybe as many as 2,000.
Boas's work on the physical characteristics of humans convinced him that race itself was an awkward category. Because it was impossible to define, it was of no real scientific use.
Biological differences between races are small. There is no reason to believe that one race is in nature so much more intelligent and endowed with greater willpower, nor emotionally more stable than another.
Franz Boas taught at Columbia University for half a century. The list of his students who went on to set up and teach the subject along his lines at other universities reads like the who's who of American anthropology. By the time of his death, he was rightly regarded by scholars from all over the world as the founding father of American anthropology.
I can still remember quite vividly what happened that day, December 21st, 1942. Boas invited a few persons to a luncheon with Rivet at the faculty club at Columbia University. It was an extremely cold day, as a matter of fact, one of the coldest days I can remember, and Boas arrived early from his home, his Grand Hood, on the other side of the Hudson. He was wearing, I remember, a very dilapidated and discolored fur cap, which probably dated back to his time with the Eskimo 50 years earlier. Boas was in very high spirits, and luncheon started quite gaily. And then, all of a sudden, Boas was struck by something like an electric shock. He pushed violently and fell backward on the ground with his chair. And I was seated by his side, and immediately I tried to help him, but he was dead. And we all left struck with sorrow and with the feeling that we had the sad privilege to witness the passing out of one of the very last intellectual giants, such as the 19th century was able to produce, and whom probably will not be produced anymore.
His last words at that supper were that he had a new idea on race. His audience never heard what that new idea was. In his long and productive career, however, Franz Boas produced a series of new ideas that changed the way that educated Americans thought about race, language,